Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of the Full Quota Podcast. My name is mpho, and I'm your host with Tim Del Lace there on the other side. There he is, as well as the South African Cricket Podcast that talks all things South Africa. We've got lots to talk about and lots to get through. Our test side, that's in New Zealand, have played some cricket now. Hopefully, and they look as though they're not jet lagged. So that's a good thing. But before we get into all of that, please do follow us on the Full Quota Pod on X or Twitter. Subscribe to the One World Sports Radio YouTube channel, as well as also be we're on the audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can catch us there if you're an audio person, right? As you go along, and so yeah, so that's what we normally do. Before we get going, Tim, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, mate. After two enthralling test matches, I'm on a high.
Oh.
I just hope that continues. It's the
Test
best
cricket is
format
test
of the
cricket,
game. It's the best format of the game there is. I don't care what anyone says. It is the best
we
format.
love this game. Shout out to Shamar Joseph, who just bowled the type of lengths we want South African bowlers to bowl. He was like, you know what? Well, I'm aiming for the stumps. I'm going for those Yorkers. And Josh Hazelwood, just couldn't do it. But 7 for him. Alex Hartley in India. After that first innings, obviously even Shamar had a broken toe, suspected. So, oh man, lots of drama. Really, really great. But in South African cricket, we also had some drama. Let's start off with the SA Under-19. This week they played England. They lost to England via the Duckworth-Lewis method. And then they played Scotland on Saturday. And someone was a must-win, but you need to win with a large margin. And so Scotland scored 270, and they're batting first. And then we saw the Steve Stolk show. I think he scored 50 in 19 balls. And then he went on to score 83 in like 36 or 30 something, the low 30s there. And it was just a show of note, masterclass from him. Tim, that SA Under-19 side, obviously now in the Super Sixes, it's not ideal because they split their wins across the three teams, West Indies and England, but obviously they go through as group winners. But how was that game on Saturday?
It was a game of two halves. I was expecting South Africa to steamroll them after the disappointment of England.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think they were all that impressive with the ball. I've got to be honest. As good I think as Jamie Dunk, I was very, very impressed with his batting. I'm a bit worried for South Africa when they come up against Australia, India, and England. If we play them again, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not sure why, but I don't quite understand why Lewis, Norton, and Parker in general are not clicking as a unit, and they're just not going. They're just not threatening enough for me.
Yeah.
So that is a huge concern for me. But focus on the positives. The way they blew them out the water with their batting. We've seen it throughout the tournament that the opening pair is so important to South Africa's success, and even when they were both out, it continued. That was most impressive. It continued.
Yes.
Murray and Tiga, that positive approach, going for that, getting that total within that 30 overs, which is what we needed to do. So I'm very happy with the batters. I think everybody now has at least got one innings of the tournament, at least. But I'm a bit worried about the bowling. I can't lie. I'm a bit concerned.
Look, I think it'll come with time. They also had injuries. So it's a bit of a worry for me, especially in home conditions. But you got to trust Mapaka. You got to trust Lees, because these kids are of an ilk that or a level, not an ilk. I should stop using this wild English. Of a level that is domestic and at a good international level. Because Gwena could walk into the Proteas within a year. Lease also has a pathway up there, and so you kind of have to give them a chance. And also, sometimes you arrive with the pressures of the world because they arrive in that game with pressure, right? They need to make it to the they need to win, and it doesn't go your way. But luckily, Steve Stolk and Luandri Pretorius came through for them at the top and got it within 29 overs. Kind of tells you the type of destructive batting Steve Stolk can do. So that was a cool one. Then over in Australia down under, our SA women's side took on the coaches women took on Australia in a three T20 series. The first two matches were back to back. Saturday on Australia Day, which Australia won, and then on Sunday, Australia won the first game by 8 wickets. Then on Sunday, South Africa did the unthinkable. South Africa managed to win their first ever game match against Australia across all formats. It was beautiful to see. Louisville for Tasman at the top, holding up the fort. Marzan coming in at three in this T20, and then everyone else was coming down to get them home. And what was really, really awesome to see, Masabata Class is quite underrated in this side, and she took quite a lot of key wickets at the top of Australia's order. Beth Mooney, who caused problems in the last game, caused problems in this game, and now we're level with one more to go, which is awesome. But Tim, I don't know if you woke up or if you saw the highlights, but it was really nice to be awake at the time when they actually won the match. It was something because it was something beautiful to see.
Yeah, so I missed the first one, and I think the fact that I saw second half of the second run means I need to get up earlier and watch the games more. But I like the intensity. Again, we talk about the intensity. I think that what made the difference in this game for the Proteas ladies was the intensity of the chase. They didn't say, well, let's see where we are after 6 or 7 overs. They went after the runs from the get-go, particularly Tasman Brits. The more she does that for us, the more chance we have of winning games. And then you get people like Senior Lewis who can then do what they do well. They can do the manipulation of the strikes on a consistent basis, score run a ball. They don't have to go and score 9, 10s, 11s and over because Tasman has given them that start. And obviously Laura, the fact that she was there throughout the innings just solidified the entire chase. So that's a huge thing. I think it's the first win in 25 games. I think against Australia. Which is a huge thing for the team. We knew that they could be potentially competitive for the series. So to get a win so early on in the tour is a huge thing. It's great to see.
And it's also a long tour because they're still playing ODIs and they're also going to play a test series or a test match, right? And so my thoughts were maybe we could also get an Ashes style, accumulate all the different points across the different formats type of relationship with Australia. But it was good to see that South African cricket because the thinking obviously is there is a bit of a decline, and that middle order, even though they won the game, came through in the end. They held on, they supported Laura really well, but wickets were being lost. Question marks for me are still around Sine Lease. And the question obviously is we can't sustain this type of upfront. It's like the SA under 19. Without Stoke and Pretorius, that middle order is still not coming together, right? They can bat around somebody who's eased the pressure off of them, but when you need them to make a play, they're not making a play. And that's my worry about the Proteas women right now is that from a bowling perspective, I thought Masabata Class stepped up really well, and she really bowled really quite well in that game, and she's always been that type of a bowler. She's not Ayabonga Kaka, she's not Shibnim Ishmael, so she's always the third bowler that everyone wants to attack, but they can't because she's actually very good and she bowls a hard ball and she gives as much effort. So really well done to the Proteas women. I keep on calling them Momentum Proteas women, but the Proteas women down under for an awesome win. Long may they come. I know there's a match probably tomorrow morning, or early this week, with them against Australia for that third T20. So that's also pretty cool. But Tim, the story of the weekend. Story of the weekend. A quick one about West Indies, Australia, the 2-match test series that we don't like. And then we'll talk about India, England. But my thing, well done to the West Indies. Really, really well done. They've somehow found a way to arrest the decline in their cricket, especially the Test cricket. And now this win kind of gives them a chance to say, actually, these guys are actually very good. The only problem is we've seen this. Remember in Bangladesh when they had Kyle Mayers and all those guys coming into the Test setup against Bangladesh, and they took Bangladesh to the sword. They just couldn't build on that because they just got lured by T20 and everything else. Whereas now you have this young side of guys who've been to South Africa when they say to us, so we've seen some of them or most of them, and it's just something. And they've got that fast bowling quartet that can travel the world and cause problems. And so I'm excited for them. How do you make of this West Indies win over the weekend?
So just to put it into context, the West Indies got that win without Shai Hope and Jason Holder. That is a combined 100 test matches. So they said, well, we don't need that. Without 100 test matches, people like Sheldon Gabriel, Jaden Seals, who's been a real find for them. So they've done it without guys that are coming through the system or guys that have been there for the last 10 years. It is an enormous achievement from their perspective. If you look at both the test matches, they were competitive throughout the series. They were competitive for large parts of both test matches. And if you look at actually, when I sort of analysed it, I said to myself, well, if Chanderpaul and Brathwaite can see off the new ball, if they can see off that at the first hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to lunch, then they've got a chance. The fact that neither of them made any significant runs in the series at any time at all is a huge credit to a massively inexperienced batting order in particular.
Yeah.
It's a very, very inexperienced unit. Like we've seen these before. We've seen these false dawns before. We've seen these one-off games where they go and they beat England and they beat Bangladesh. We've seen it before. But the ingredients is there for them to actually really take it and grow with this. Grow with the squad. Most of the squad should go to England. What they shouldn't do, they shouldn't go, right, okay, we'll go to all the old guard and we'll go back. They can bring one or two of them in, but I would like to see most of them go to England when they go to England later in the tour. Hugely impressive. And Shamar Joseph, I mean, we know the story one by now, but he is an exceptional talent.
Pace paced him. That kid's got pace.
Indeed.
He runs in like Kemal Roach. He runs in like he's gonna run the 100 meters. Then he slings that thing, which is quite interesting, right? Because you don't see that type of style, that Shamar Joseph style here in South Africa, which I think it might be one of the easiest ways to actually be a fast bowler. Obviously, injuries dependent and everything else, but it's actually quite fascinating to see how he's just come in and he's just so accurate and so great. So well done to them. The next game, that game ebbed and flowed. If you watched day one, you thought England were in trouble. Or being bowled out for 240. India put on a lot of runs. A whole lot of runs. And then England came in and Ollie Pope was like, I'm not leaving. 196, which is awesome. And then somehow, somewhere, England's gamble paid off of playing 3 frontline spinners and 1 seamer, and they just had India in a web in India, which is also kind of says like, if I'm in India, if I win the toss, I can win the game.
Indeed. Indeed. Sorry, I'm just looking up a few numbers here. I don't know how that win came about. I really don't. I mean, huge credit to England for getting that win, but India had their chances and they just didn't take them. That's the crux. The second innings, they had England 170 for 5. 170 for 5, you're thinking, that's it, game over. You're playing in India, the ball is turning. But I think a combination of things. I think India didn't bowl well enough in that second innings from that moment. I don't think they bowled well enough. I don't think they used the bowlers at the right times. And I guess an element of a new guy. They'd never seen Hartley before. They didn't know what he was about.
It was fascinating that guys wanted to come down the pitch to him. It just made no sense to me.
Well, it did at the first innings, not at the second innings. You're right. First innings, you want to impose yourself. You want to say to the new guy, "You're not good enough for Test cricket." That's what you want to do. You want to make him feel very small, which they did for this first 6 or 7 overs. He was going for 9s and over, 9, 10 and over, but he just kept coming back. He just kept coming back. His head didn't drop, and that's a huge a plus for him. He's obviously got a bit of character about him. He's interested in taking the fight to the opposition. Both the home fan base were going, but he was picked. Who's this Hartley bloke? England said that he was picked for his high release points. There was lots of talk about that, about the high release points, and they left Liam Dawson behind. Liam Dawson had a fantastic county season this last season. He's obviously an SA20. So there was lots of disagreement about his selection. He's proved all the doubters wrong. And the other thing I will point out is there's an element of India getting the pitch wrong for their own players. There was a stat towards the end which showed the more spin there is on an Indian wicket, the more
it brings the opposition back in. Yes, because you can bring just entry-level spinners, and I say this respectfully, to India, and they can spin a web around you, right? And as the game deteriorates, obviously the spin is going to increase, and that's why guys like Hartley and Joe Root are coming into the game. And yeah, it's a question they need to answer, right? Because they're in this weird space where they've also got some really good fast bowlers, and you got to give them something for as long as possible, even if you're going to bowl second, right? And to a certain extent, that's the thing, right? To think in England looked at that pitch and were like, okay, we're going on 3 spinners. The only time Wood's going to bowl is with the new ball, and at the time, every time there's a break. And they used them very sparingly. And I'm thinking about this. I'm like, okay, so it's a 5-test series. They got the first one wrong. It's going to be interesting to see if Jimmy gets a chance and all the other guys. But I see the high release point from Alex Hartley. I thought he was, because when I started seeing guys coming down the wicket, I was sitting there going, it didn't see, he looked like he was darting them in, but there was a few that he just left in the air. And obviously because of his height, they went a little bit higher than normal, and guys kept on coming down, which whoever saw that, that's a masterstroke. Sorry for the shorter spinners. Sorry, Oaks. Like, there's nothing I can do. Blame God. Don't blame me. But yeah, look, but that's the thing about baseball, right? They trying to find different ways of disrupting the game, of seeing something differently. And if that's the reason, that's amazing, because that's just ingenious. That's unbelievable. And to a certain extent, like Ashwin and Kumble and Jadeja, to a certain extent, even though slightly shorter than Ashwin, very highly. Akshar Patel, exactly the same thing. Washington Sundar, that's what India are going for. That's the type of spinner India are going for. So well done, England. A really, really great win there. Okay, let's move to the SA20. It's been an interesting week. There's been rain on the Highveld and there's rain happening right now, but the game that's happening today is in Cape Town, so well done for that. Um, Interesting week. I think the Joburg Super Kings, all but outside of mathematics, have gotten themselves out of it. But we'll talk about that as we go along. But let's go through the fixtures, Tim, the results, and have a look. Those are the other results. The first set of results, I'm sorry, they're upside down, but we're working from bottom up. Was last week, Monday, MI Cape Town went to hosted Durban Super Giants. In Cape Town, Durban Super Giants batting first, scored 156. And then they got spun a web by within MI Cape Town. Really struggled in that game, and you saw what's his thing? Who's our friend?
Noor.
Nur
Noor.
Ahmed. Yes, Nur Ahmed from Afghanistan making his debut for that team. Scoring 3 for 22. Marcus Dornans took 3 for 18. Vian Mulder scored 38 for the Durban Super Giants, which is quite an interesting one, Tim, because Vian's now having some sort of I'm too good for domestic cricket, but I don't know how to play international cricket.
Yeah, he's having a good tournament. Let's put it that way, which is good.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yes. Putting his hand up. Look, I wouldn't be mad if Vian came in as an all-round option at 7, but the question obviously would then be, is he a better bowler than Andile Petlukwayo or even Wayne Parnell? And the answer still is, for me, a no. Then the next game was the Joburg Super Kings, who effectively need to win every game at this point in time. They came up, they hosted the Paul Royals in Johannesburg. Vian Libba and Dane Villas, guys who we were questioning ourselves about, went ham in Johannesburg. Vian Libba scored 57 or 48. Dane Villas 42 of 26 to score 171. The Joburg Super Kings really did try, but the slow starts are hurting them. Reza scored 79 of 56, but he started very slowly, pretty much around a ball there, and they couldn't get to the 171 in the end. If they're effectively batting with the handbrake up there, Tim.
Yeah. They are, certainly.
It's horrible, especially to see Faf du Plessis. We're going to talk about Faf du Plessis being old, but yeah, that's another one. Then you had the next day was the Sunrisers Eastern Cape taking on the Pretoria Capitals in Pretoria. Aiden Markham's return game home. The Sunrisers Eastern Cape scored 122 for 9. We thought it would be no. The Pretoria Capitals bat first and scored 125. We thought, oh, here we go, they're out of the tournament. Then Ethan Bosch and Darren de Pavilon held the Sunrisers Eastern Cape to 122 for 9. It was more of a bowling performance than a batting performance on the Highveld at Centurion, which is uncharacteristic to the Centurion wicket. And they got themselves back in the tournament with that win. The next day, the Paul Royals took on Durban Super Giants. The Paul Royals Durban Super Giants went on to score 190 in Paul, which was the highest score in Paul this season. And then John Smith with a knock of 52 or 39, which I like, and Quinton de Kock reminded everyone that he's still Quinton de Kock with 83 or 51. And then the Paul Royals just capitulated again. Well, not again, but they capitulated for the first time in the season. And they were bowled out for 133 at home, which was a interesting thing because now this theme of this week is the Durban Super Giants are now starting to take control of this tournament. And then the next game was MI Cape Town against the Sunrise Eastern Cape in Gqeberha. Sunrise Eastern Cape put up 175 for 6. Tom Bell 60 of 44. Adam Markham 54 of 33 of 32. Waters wet. Othniel Bartman bowling, just a masterclass. The man is the best death bowler in South Africa. I know I say that it's Sisanda Magala, but Tim, Othniel Bartman can bowl anything you want in the death overs.
He's the go-to man now. The next T20 series approaching his play, he's got to be in that squad, undoubtedly.
No, most definitely. And then the next game on the Saturday, the 27th, was abandoned. That was the 5:30 game. But then on Sunday, we had a game which was Durban Super Giants against the Paul Royals again. the reverse fiction. This time, Durban Super Giants doing the exact same thing they did the other time, but this time in Durban, they scored 208 for 7. Matthew Bretzka, 78 of 43. Hanno Klaassen, 50 off 17. And Noor Ahmed, the Afghanistan bowler, 5 for 11 as the Paul Rosa bowled out for 83. That was the capitulation again that I wanted to say earlier on. And we found ourselves in a situation where the table looks like this. The Durban Super Giants and the Paul Royals have qualified for the playoffs. They are sitting there on 22 and 28 points respectively. The Sunrisers Eastern Cape need a win to get themselves into the playoffs. But you have the Pretoria Capitals, MICT and Joburg Super Kings who are fighting for that fourth spot. Mathematically, anybody can have it. If you lose a few games and the others win some games, you are in. But you could say the Sunrisers are effectively in. But hey, look, a skid will stop anybody from going through. But right now, sitting at the bottom, about to exit, are the Joburg Super Kings. MI Cape Town are giving us what they've given us last year, just starting off well, then fading towards the end. Tim, when you look at these teams and you look at this table, you saw last week the resurgence of the Durban Super Giants, which we thought in week 2 was slowing down. But they seem to have found their mojo again. Well, the other thing was, I was asked this during the week, they just love playing the Paul Royals. That's just plain and simple with the Durban Super Giants at this point in time.
That's true, but it's also the Noor Ahmed guy coming in. Noor Ahmed, for me, is going to have a better average than Rashid Khan. If he plays some larger games for Afghanistan, Noor Ahmed is gonna outdo Rashid Khan as a bowler. That boy is an exceptional bowler. He is so difficult to pick. They don't know what he's doing, which way the ball is going. He is, right now, he is the magic within that Durban team. They've got very good players, and they are playing very well as a team. But for me, he is the difference between them making a final and winning it. I really genuinely think if he continues to play like this, bowl like this, he's going to be unstoppable. It's been great to see.
Yes, it's been really, really great to see. And yeah, so the other thing this week, obviously, is the teams at the bottom. We've spoken about them a lot, but MI Cape Town now are slowing down. Tim, what's going on there in Cape Town? I'm seeing now, and we spoke about these teams front-loaded, very heavy-loaded. After the guys at the top are out, they can't do much from there. Is it that the case, or is it something else?
No, that's pretty much it. It's topsy-turvy season. You see flashes of excellence because you got people like Robardo in there, and you got people with genuine talent, but it's just not playing as a team. It's just not clicking for them. I think they've made wrong decisions with their team. I think Grant should have been given a chance earlier on in the season.
Yeah.
I said that last week, and they're just not getting the best out of what is a very good squad. The other thing is, I wasn't expecting him to necessarily be the man, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But when you've got people like Brevis and Livingston, who was been to South Africa before, was very successful.
Yeah.
Brevis, who is in prior to this tournament, was an exceptional form prior to the tournament. Those guys not firing, plus Pollard offering very little, is killing the side, really, in the batting front. That's where their problem is, really. It's the batting. The bowling, they've been okay. It's that batting that's really struggled.
Yeah, no, and it's evident, right? Because now teams are catching up to them. The Sunrisers are now looking much better, and they are stepping up, and now they've passed them after a slow start from them. Though obviously the question is, can the Pretoria Capitals have now gone past them, but can the Joburg Super Kings beat them for the wooden spoon? Right now they actually have a game today. So by the time you listen to this, you'll probably know what happened to that in that game, the Battle of the Basement Dwellers. I'm just going to go through some of the fixtures to go through and just get you a certain sense. So, if the Joburg Super Kings lose this match, it will make it very hard for them to qualify for the playoffs. They need to win this match, get to 12 points, and then effectively say it's over to you, MI Cape Town and the Pretoria Capitals. Then the next game is the Pretoria Capitals against the Durban Super Giants. Super Giants have qualified. The Pretoria Capitals need a win to give themselves a chance. It's going to go down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen. That's what it's going to be for the final spot in SA20's playoffs. The Joburg Super Kings go to host then on Wednesday the Sunrise Eastern Cape in a if we lose, we are gone. Now, Sunrise Eastern Cape effectively will be kicking the Joburg Super Kings out and cementing their spot in the playoffs, which currently still mathematically isn't secure. So if you're the Joburg Super Kings, you need to win the next three. Pretoria Capitals against MI Cape Town and another battle of the basement dwellers. I think this game will give you, if there isn't any rain, the fourth team that qualifies, unless if Joburg Super Kings decide to win all three. But I think that's the game to watch on Thursday, is what the Pretoria Capitals do against MI Cape Town. There's only a point separating them right now. And if the Durban Super Giants beat the Pretoria Capitals, that's going to be the game which might send people through. Again, on Friday, you've got the Paul Royals and Sunrise Eastern Cape. This one doesn't have a lot of urgency or a lot of context apart from the teams fighting for a qualifier spot, to have two shots at the cherry, not just necessarily one if you sit in 3 and 4, which would be the eliminator. Then on Saturday, it's effectively another qualifier. Well, this one will be a qualifier for the playoffs if it works well. If you come out with 2 wins here, if you're one of the Pretoria Capitals and MI Cape Town, you're definitely in to the playoffs. And I think that's where the fixtures kind of fall flat for the Joburg Super Kings, is that this double header between the Capitals and MI Cape Town effectively decide who goes through, and it might just leave them out in the cold again. To close it off, in Johannesburg on Saturday night, the Joburg Super Kings host the Durban Super Giants, and then on Sunday it's Sunrise Eastern Cape against the Paul Royals to close out that double header. Not a lot of context there, but there's a lot of fighting for the top spot, and if the Sunrise Eastern Cape have a good week, they could finish in second position behind the Durban Super Giants and give themselves 2 shots at a final instead of just one. And remember, the way this tournament is set up is that you have a qualifier with 1 and 2. The winner goes straight to the final, and then number 2 will wait for the winner of the eliminator, which is 3 and 4. Loser goes home there. 1 advances, and then we have a final qualifier, which is effectively a semi-final that will decide who goes into the final, with the winner of the eliminator and the loser of the qualifier. So you want that 2 bites at the cherry, and I think the Sunrise Eastern Cape would want that, because you don't want to go into a situation where you're playing an MI Cape Town or even a Pretoria Capitals and all of a sudden they click and you are out in the cold and they advance. So it's going to be quite an interesting time, Tim. Let's just go through some of our awards before we go off. Let's start with MVP of the week. I think you've got one person as MVP of the week, Tim.
Yes, I have. My MVP is a guy who I talked about last week. I said he needed to step up, and that's Marcus Stoinis. Marcus Stoinis stepped up this week. 3 for 18, 3 for 24, and 1 for 22. I don't think he was less. I think every game he was less than 7 and over in every single one of those games. He stepped up for me. I was hoping more for the batting, but he still stepped up.
Yeah, he took 10 wickets. His economy rate is just above 7, but he's striking at. He's got 10 wickets already, and he's only played 3 less games than the top 3. That's an interesting pick from you. Mine is another Durban Super Giant, is Matthew Brietzke. He's moved up on the pecking order, scoring a lot of runs. Now that 78 is something that happened last week, but now he's on 301 runs, number 2 on the runs scorers chart, about 81 runs behind Ryan Rickleton. He's also putting his hand up for the Proteas setup. We know we've got Reza Hendricks, who's not putting his hand up. Faf du Plessis isn't putting his hand up. The guys at the Pretoria Capitals and Riley Rousseau aren't putting their hands up. Matthew Bretzker played in the last T20 series. He's saying, I see Ryan, I raise you myself. And I love that. Love that going into the World Cup. It's going to be interesting to see how Rob does it because, if you leave out Reza, people are going to complain. If you don't pick Ryan, people are going to complain. If you leave out Matthew Bretzker, people are going to complain. If you leave out Devil Brevis, which shouldn't require people to complain, people still complain. If Quinton's not coming, that's going to be a problem. It's just going to be a mess at the top of the order, but I love this. He must pick the best team. And if it is an SA20 11, might as well do it. Innings of the week, Tim. Which innings of the week are you going for?
Claessen's 50 of 17 balls, precisely because his team were 150 for 5 with 3 overs to go. So they scored 57 of the last 3, largely due to Klaassen. The boy is just on a train. That boy is just firing at all cylinders. He cannot go to any other gear. He is on Klaassen gear. Whatever that is, that's what he's on. He is
Klaassen gear. Klaassen gear. I love that.
He is unbelievable.
Okay. Mine is I think this week's just the Durban Super Giants week. It's weird, but anyway. Noor Ahmed, that 5 for 11. Bowlers need some love too, guys. Bowlers need some love too. As you said, Tim, earlier on, this kid is sensational. He is like how Rashid Khan was a couple of years ago, or a few years ago. I don't know. Obviously, Rashid Khan has been playing for a very long time. This kid is it. He's got it all. And to bowl out the Paul Royals, who've been a very stable batting lineup in tough batting conditions. They've been the team that has adapted the best. To bowl them out like this tells me a lot about who you are and the future that you have. And he might even go for a lot of money at the next SA20 auction if he's not retained by the Durban Super Giants. But bowlers need love too, and he is that one. Surprise of the week. Do you have a surprise of the week?
Yes, I do. Dan Wobble. Dan Wobble for the Sunrisers has been doing really well. Now, I think the pitches have been a little bit favourable to him, but you've still got to put it in the right places. You've still got to do the business. And I think it's just a case of he's a very experienced cricketer. 3 for 22, 2 for 29, 1 for 32. Just really effective for the Sunrisers. I'm gone from saying I wouldn't be picking him to can't drop him. You can't drop him at the moment. No.
Yeah, you can't.
Big surprise for me, but there you go.
To me, it's the other Sunriser, Tom Abel. Just like Bian Mulder, I see you. I wasn't familiar with your game. Let me say that, Tom Abel. I'm sorry, but I wasn't familiar with your game. Finally, you've actually, showed the Sunrisers and everyone else why the Sunrisers picked you. So that was a really, really good knock. That's 60 or 44. I really enjoyed watching that. Finally, I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. I kind of know where you're going with this. So have at it, Tim.
You did you? Okay. MICT and Pretoria started playing for the Capitals.
Oh, okay. Different one.
That's for me. I don't understand why at this stage, with the way they've gone throughout the campaign, that they have not given at least one game to MICT and Pretoria prior to the tournament. The last 4 games he played, okay, different format, but form is form. He had 3 50s and 2 5-wicket hauls in his last 4 games. He was bang in form. He was raring to go. He was an ideal place to test himself at that next level against quality opposition with quality players, and he hasn't been given that chance. I'm not angry. I'm not disappointed because he plays for the Capitals, and Capitals at the time of the start of the tournament were the best picked squad. So yes. I'm not disappointed, but I'm sad. I'm sad for him. I really am. I think he really should have had a game, at least a game, by this point.
at least a game by this point. We get to know that Wayne Matson has been selected by the Joburg Supergiants in this game. So it'll be interesting to see him. But my I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed goes to Faf du Plessis and Reza Hendricks. Reza, I know you scored that 79, but you would agree that that 79 isn't who you really are or the way you normally play. I'd just like to know what's going on. Talk to me, guys. What's happening? Faf is Faf old? I don't know. I don't think so. Are his eyes going? I'm not sure. But has Father Time caught up with him? It well looks like it. And I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed because I thought Faf was a shoo-in to go to the West Indies and the USA for the World Cup, but it looks like we've got youngsters who can do it now as well. The only other problem with Reza Hendricks is that if these things continue to happen, you might not find yourself on the plane to the West Indies and the USA. And I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed because the battings of this team is you too. If you guys get out early, it's over. But you've struggled to play. You've struggled to bat at the top. It's been tough for you guys. We get it. You know, teams are now getting to understand who you are, your little likes and dislikes, and then they're getting you out. But come on, guys. It can't be like this. You can't go down like this. Because now when you pick the World Cup squad, we're going to be relying on, oh, guys, but Rizzo had a great year last year. There was another player who was like that and then was never to be seen again. His name was Yanaman Malan. Where is Yanaman Malan now in SA20? Don't let this, you need to arrest this decline in form. We need some big performances from you guys to remind us that you guys still have it, because these youngsters are running all around you and they might just take your spot and go away. So that's I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Outside of that, the other surprise I forgot to say, Nuan Tushara, who balls like Lasses Malinga, like it's like exact carbon copy. That guy should have played earlier in the tournament. I don't understand why he hasn't, but he's not the reason why MI Cape Town are at the bottom. He's actually very good at what he does. Outside of that, Tim, any final words before we go?
Just to follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. We need some more fun. We need some more love. We need some.
Yes.
We need some more love. Go to Front Quota Pod on Twitter, now X. We need some more love there.
Yes, and also we're going to be doing a podcast previewing the Test series against New Zealand. So please do look out for that. We're going to be talking to someone in New Zealand to kind of give us a sense of what New Zealand think of our team that went over there. But they did well today in that warm-up game. So we're really happy for them. And yeah, just runs were being scored. They weren't bowled out. But as you were saying, Tim, it feels like it was a domestic game-ish more than a testing of your abilities.
It lacked intensity. That's what it lacked. It lacked intensity. Yeah. That was the issue. But runs are runs, and they got accustomed to the conditions, which is good.
Yeah. And you stole the words out of my mouth, Tim. Runs are runs are runs. And this week, whichever team you support in the SA20 or England and India or Australia and West Indies, I hope that your team scores runs and runs and runs. And outside of that, for myself and Tim here at the Full Quarter Pod, it's goodbye and lesale kakahiso.